Apple has never been afraid to burn down its past to build its future. We saw it when they axed the headphone jack, and when they transitioned from PowerPC to Intel. If you rely on legacy software, or just like keeping a few older unupdated apps around, macOS 27 is going to be your worst nightmare. It marks the official death of backwards compatibility on the Mac, pretty much. First of all, let's talk about why the physical hardware is going to be a challenge for macOS 27. Machines like the 2019 Mac Pro still get support, even though they use an Intel chip. But with macOS 27, they're removing all Intel support whatsoever, and it's going to be completely Apple Silicon. If your Mac still has an Intel chip, then you are done. First of all, if you're still using OpenCore Legacy Patcher, it doesn't look like it's going to get Tahoe support at all, so you're probably going to be stuck on Sequoia. And even if you do have one of the last supported Intel machines that can run Tahoe, like the 2019 Mac Pro or the 2020 iMac, you're not getting updates anymore. It's not good. The good news is, if you're one of most people who has an Apple Silicon Mac nowadays, the updates are going to get much nicer because they won't have to compile two separate updates, one for Intel, one for Apple Silicon, so it will probably be a much nicer on your hard drive space. But what if you already own an Apple Silicon Mac? You should be safe, right? Well, your hardware is, but your software isn't. When Apple announced the transition to Apple Silicon, they introduced Rosetta 2, a translation layer that allowed x86 Intel apps to run seamlessly on ARM-based chips. Apple promised it would stick around during the transition period, but now we are 6 years into that transition and the clock has run out. In macOS 27, Rosetta 2 is entering its final phase-out stage. Apple has started aggressively throwing system warnings for apps that haven't been updated to natively run on Apple Silicon. I know, because I've been getting them like crazy, because, oh, God forbid I forget to update Balena Etcher, or, like, Deck Screen. If you use any legacy apps, say an old version of Adobe Creative Suite that you purchased years ago, or some audio plugin that's only compiled for Intel, it will just cease to function. Once Rosetta 2 is completely stripped from the code, x86 apps on an M-series Mac are nothing more than paperweights. The final nail in the coffin is under the hood, buried deep within how macOS interacts with storage and file systems. When Apple introduced APFS, they maintained a robust backwards compatibility framework to read older formats, handle legacy extensions, and allow for internal storage mechanics like Apple File Services or AFS. But with macOS 26, legacy file sharing protocols, drive container structures, and old kernel extensions are being entirely purged from the system kernel. I can relate to this problem myself, since I have a MacBook Neo, and I record some of this stuff with a DV-Cam, that's what you're watching right now, over FireWire, which is recording to a PowerBook G4. Now, I use that because it has FireWire, and my MacBook Neo obviously doesn't. We'll talk about the whole FireWire Tahoe thing in another video, because it's too much for this. But with macOS 27, how I transfer the files is I run a file server on this PowerBook. I'm pointing at it right now. And I wirelessly connect to it with my MacBook Neo, and it still works. But with macOS 27, I'm no longer going to be able to do that, and I'm going to have to use my NAS as a interpreter for the two systems because they're not going to be able to talk to each other anymore. But for the power users, the archivists, and the professionals running specialized legacy pipelines, it's a stark reminder of the hidden cost of the Apple ecosystem. Are you still running any Intel-based apps or hardware? Let me know how macOS 27 will affect you in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Are you still running any Intel-based apps or hardware? Let me know how macOS 27 will affect you in the comments below.